Folks, I want to welcome you on an exciting journey. Oh my gosh, this has been years and years of the fruit of our labor is coming to the surface. So I want to welcome my co-host, Katie Rabino. How you doing today, Katie?
Hi, Kary. Great. How are you doing?
Good. Well, listen, we're going to talk about the why behind the book, behind the podcast. But for people who don't know, we're going to use the terms today, and we're really introducing them to a whole new world. So when we say IP, Katie, what does IP mean?
That's a great question. So, I'd say when we think about IP, we want to think very broadly. A lot of
Mm.
times we think it's just some specific, very new idea. That's all I can protect. But really, there's IP in just about everything we do, in creative works that we write or um,
Even designs, right?
even
Like,
design, right? Yep. The
yeah,
pictures, right?
ooh,
Audio, and even in this podcast, there's
yeah,
IP.
yeah.
And then also, obviously, there's IP in things we name that are unique, in logos,
Even
labels,
smells in our book.
smells. Yes. Even like layouts of restaurants, designs of restaurants, things you don't even think are protectable. There's probably some way they can be protected with some form of IP.
This is mind blowing. I really want people to think, because I was talking to somebody yesterday about the new book, and I said, you know what the book really is? The book is an identity shift. Like, think about that. I don't know if you've thought about that until now, but you are an IP company. Like, right away out of the gate, people are thinking, whoa, what are you talking about? I make ice cream. I design shoes. I sell lawn care. I'm not an IP company. And yet you and I every day, we're like, yes, you are. Like, I'm holding a can right here. There's so much IP even in this can. I dare not share the logo, otherwise I'll have to give them royalties from this podcast. But we have like the tab, we have the design. I mean, there's logos, there's ingredient. Oh yeah, you're the pharmacist here. You would say that in this special can, there's even different concoctions, right?
Mhm.
Chemicals and stuff.
Different formulations, how that formulation is made, manufactured,
Oh
processed,
my. Oh
all,
my.
where you're sourcing these ingredients from and putting them together. So there's tons of IP in everything we interact with. Think about too your cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. And there's probably in one cell phone 1,000 patents covering the
Oh my.
functionality of the software in there, the shape of it, the design, all of the Bluetooth, 5G wiring, right? There are so many things protecting that one item we use every day of our
And
lives.
then it's not even the iPhone only, it's the magnetic case, right?
Yeah.
And then the design of the case, right? I mean, and then it's the like port that goes into the chargers, and now you have like, it's mind blowing. It really is. It really is.
It's
So
incredible.
it
Yeah.
is. So I feel like the whole point of this podcast, really, you and I are tour guides. That might sound interesting, but we're guides to help the listener. Number one, who thinks I don't have any IP, or
Hmm.
number two, who says, oh, I know I have IP. I just don't know how to protect it. And it is a new world with new languages, new vocabulary. It is. I mean, patents, patent marking, prior art. There's all these terms that I didn't know 12 months ago. But now on the other side of the book, I'm more excited than ever. And I want to start with the why. So you and I pre-show, we kind of talked about this, but we have this thing, which is really the why. And it's the why of the book. It's the why of the podcast. But I think it comes down to your ideas are valuable, protect them today. But let's talk about the first level. Katie, do you think ideas change the world?
Oh, certainly. I mean, if you think about just in the past year, we've seen a massive acceptance of the idea of chat GPT into our lives,
Mm,
right? And last year alone in 2023, almost $30 billion was invested into 690 generative AI deals. So if you think about that, that's just one idea that has drastically changed our world in a
Change the
mere
world.
span of months. Yeah.
I mean, I can't go through a day without hearing or seeing AI.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I go to Twitter, or X, and it's like memes, videos now.
Yep.
Um, you have Justin Timberlake eating a McDonald's hamburger and it's AI, and you're like, whoa. We live in a world right now where it's changing every industry. You would almost say that any industry on the planet, if they're not at least interested in AI, they're going to become obsolete. What do you think?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, if they're not thinking about how to implement it already, they're going to be decades behind because it's already getting so woven into every industry, and it's just going to make things faster, more efficient, smarter. And so, I don't think it's going to replace everything, but I think we have to find a balance of how we can use it to our advantage, but also, um, still have some functionality and
Mhm.
ultimate decision making ourselves too.
Yeah. Well, listen, you are an IP professional, and I want people to kind of know who you are. So we'll talk a little bit about our why, and then we'll talk about who you are, who I am. You're an IP professional. Where do you work? And I know Caldwell's amazing. So tell us a little bit about that background so people know. First of all, there's no legal advice here. Let me start
Yeah, yeah.
disclaimer. Uh,
Yes.
we are not your lawyers. So we'll put that on the front end of the podcast series. But tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So I work at Caldwell Law. We're a law firm that helps growing companies with all of their intellectual property, corporate, and business needs. And so what we focus on is really creating value through IP portfolios to help clients and businesses generate a return on investment from their IP. So, kind of from the beginning, we figure out, okay, what do we want to do as a business? Are we looking to maybe get acquired? Are we looking to just create assets to put on our balance sheet? Are we looking to create licensing deals? But really, what are we looking to do?
Yep.
And then how can we create IP and position it to really extract a very great amount of value for some sort of monetization
You're
event?
you're way too humble. And Caldwell is the fastest growing law firm in America.
Yes, yes, yes,
4
the
years in a
past
row.
4 years we've been on the Inc. 5000 list. And so we're super jazzed that we made the list again this year.
Oh yeah. Listen, you, Keegan Caldwell, we just saw him off stage a few minutes ago. I mean, that is not a fake picture in the background, folks. I've been to their offices. Is the tallest building in Boston.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and then you also have offices in London,
London, Los
California.
Angeles, and soon to be Tokyo. So we're really excited about that.
That's huge. So, folks, the reason why I begged Katie to do no, I didn't beg her, but
You're being humble now. You didn't beg me, I
but
promise.
but I really hoped and prayed she would write this book with me. I just knew it would change the world, and that might be like, come on, dude, change the world, absolutely. I mean, look at Tom Shoes. Tom Shoes, buy one, give one. The founder Blake, where you buy a shoe and you give one in another, like that. It's called buy one, give one. BOGO, not get one, give one, right? And so that one for one idea has changed the world.
Hmm.
Like, there's people all over the world that now have shoes that Tom shoes exist because of an idea. But then there's other businesses that said, "Oh, we need to do that too." So this one for one idea is huge. Like there's so many ideas that have literally changed the world. But Katie, let's show the why one more time. Because here's what happens when you're a creator. It costs time and money to create ideas. Like, if you're going to do anything with the idea. So what happens is ideas change the world and ideas are valuable. But let's face it, people steal ideas. And I don't even think all the time they try to. Let's talk about that really quick because you give this great analogy in the book. We talk about IP is a property, intellectual property, and then the protection is a fence. And sometimes you need a very large fence, like a patent, a very high, thick, tall fence. Costs a lot of time and money, but totally worth it because what you're protecting needs that patent thick fence. And there's other times you need a smaller fence that's fast and a first layer, kind of like instant IP. But the point is this: not everyone tries to trespass, but sometimes as kids or adults, we find ourselves on other people's property, literally, without knowing. Do you
Mhm.
agree that that can happen in the intellectual property world too?
Oh, happens all the time, especially these days, because a lot of times these new ideas are the sum of it's a sum of new parts, but a lot of those parts are maybe known before, but it's how you're
Mm.
putting them together that creates something new.
Uber.
And so Uber, right? All these logistics apps, um, a lot of innovation just kind of builds on top of previous innovation. So you can certainly be trespassing and maybe need to get a license from someone else's IP or
Yeah,
figure out a way to create something together. And that's where we like to say good fences make good neighbors, because if you have things protected, then there's a line in the sand and you can figure out a way to work within those boundaries.
that's right. That's right. And this podcast, I'm so excited. Like, I just feel that it's going to massively help entrepreneurs because a lot of entrepreneurs, let's be real, they don't think they have any IP. And we tell the story in the book about this animator that I was sitting next to in London, and Dan Sullivan's speaking on IP, and I'm like, this is great stuff. This is great stuff. And on a break, I turn to the guy and I say, what do you do? And he said, oh, well, I work with amazing companies like Lego and like Disney, and I animate. And I said, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So what do you think of Dan's talk? Right? He's talking about IP, and the guy says, oh, I don't have any IP. Katie, you know what? I didn't. I was kind, but I'm like, really? So you don't have any IP? He says, oh no, I don't. But Lego does, Disney does, but I don't have any IP. And in about 2 minutes, we tell the story, but in the book, but I won't go into all the details. But in about 2 minutes, he realized he had a dozen in
Mhm.
2 minutes. We would call this a micro harvest. I mean, right? Like you do this all day long, where you harvest IP. But the guy suddenly thought, yeah. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Customer data, hiring processes, pricing systems. I mean, in the book, I think we list 40 or more just simple ways that people have IP. And suddenly the guy's mind was like, and I think what we did is we changed his identity from thinking I'm an animator to I am an IP company who animates, almost like Taylor Swift. Let's do that really quick thing here before we go today. Who is Taylor Swift, Katie? If you asked a person on the street who's Taylor Swift, what would they say?
Right. The most, you know, number one answer would be, oh, she writes these songs and goes on these tours, right?
Yep. So most people would say singer, entertainer, whatever, right? But you and I know we've spent time together. Uh, She's an IP company,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and and for the person who's like, no, she's not. She's got over 300 trademarks. Okay, she's trademarked her cat names.
Yeah. She's taken a very strategic approach there, because she has put belts and suspenders of protection around all of these things she's done. So she's named her tour names, she
Fearless, yeah,
protects
whatever.
those, her song names, her album names, her own name, her personal name for branding purposes. And so she's been very clever to think ahead to
Right.
get all of this locked down so that other people can't start using it and selling knockoffs without her permission.
And I think one of the main points of the book is that we talk about it probably half a dozen times. We say Taylor Swift, like, because there's critics right now who are like, yeah, that's Taylor Swift. Yeah, that's Dolly Parton. Yeah, that's The Rock. Of course they protect their IP. And in the book, we say, with many stories, that Taylor Swift doesn't protect her IP because she's big. She's big because she protects her IP.
That's
And
right.
we give so many examples. We give examples of Krispy Kreme, Dr. Pepper, Magnolia, EOS, Strategic Coach, SeedSpark, big and small, people that know companies or people that don't. We say that every single person who is protecting their IP is creating value. And I think there's this other really important thing, Katie, that says until you take your IP seriously, other people will not take your IP seriously. What do you think about that?
100%. Because if you don't protect your IP, then when someone is trespassing, you really have no defense to go after them with.
Yeah.
It's like those people who come onto your land. We've seen all these stories all over the
The
news of
squatters or
the
whatever they're called.
squatters, right? And if you've just let them stay there for a long amount of time, it's very hard to get rid of them. Same sort of idea here. If you don't protect it and people start knocking it off, ripping it off, there's
Yeah.
very few causes of action you can use to go
Right.
after them at that point, and it's going to be a very much an uphill battle.
Yeah. And the person who's listening, we've met this person, and they say, "Oh, I'm just, I'm a generous person." We tell the true story in the book about somebody who created an amazing technology, and it's their father's company, and they're like, I don't care, people can use my IP, they already are. And at one of our strategic coach workshops, a lady turns to this guy and says, okay, I get that you're generous, but what if your competitor, who is using your IP, takes it and then protects it and locks you out of your own technology that you've created? And his face turned white. And he's like, I'd be out of business in a month.
Yeah.
So even if you're super generous, like lots of companies that we're going to talk about, they still protect their IP because then they can control it.
That's right. And you
Right?
can, by controlling it, you can still lend it out to people to
That's right.
use for free. We list in the book too several different examples of this, how it's done. There's been a lot of examples too of humanitarian efforts, especially with medications, to get
Yes.
them to places where there's disease outbreaks, right? And we need to
Right.
get them medications, but we don't want to sue countries for patent infringement to make these medications because it's life-saving drugs.
That's right.
And there's other ways too, even if it's not that drastic, ways we can still donate IP. We talk about Elon Musk
Patent
with his
pledge, right?
patent pledge.
Yeah.
And so there's ways you can still use IP in very much collaborative manners and at no cost, but you still have to protect it so that you have that ability to control and dictate how it will be used.
That's right. Well, Katie, I am so excited about this book. I know we are just getting started with this podcast. Really, the podcast is a result of us doing our own IP and saying, you know what? We have some ideas that we can share with the world and help the world. And so this is going to be a really cool podcast. We're going to try to make it be a weekly one. But I think the whole point of today was to start with meeting Caldwell. I would say you're the IP professional. I would say I'm the IP practitioner. And yet you're a practitioner now because you have IP in a book. And I've had to study a lot. So I'm not a professional yet, but I do geek out on this. But I think the whole reason is that we have to have the world change and keep changing for the better. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way we're going to do that is that the creators keep creating. And the only way we do that is because people steal, you have to protect your idea. And then when you do, it gives you the confidence. And I'll borrow our mentor, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. The number one thing an entrepreneur needs to protect is their confidence. And if you're not confident that your ideas are protected, you will stop creating, or you certainly will stop marketing. In fact, that is a point in the book too. Before you promote your IP, you must protect your IP. So, Katie, I know this was our first episode. I am thrilled. And I don't know, you pretty excited about the new book?
I'm so excited. I think it's going to be such a great resource for companies and entrepreneurs to really read through the different steps we've laid out.
Yep.
And use the thinking tools that Kary has created that are very, I think, strategic and really align your focus. And we're just excited for what's to come next here.
Absolutely. So, folks, I would encourage you, number one, if you found value in this podcast, because it's a new podcast, the number one thing you can do is just tell us. Go on any place you're watching this, give it a quick rating, and that helps the message get out, and more ideas can change the world. Also, share it with somebody. If you say, look, I just found this podcast, and you know what? You're an entrepreneur, or you have ideas. Let's listen together and let's talk about each episode. We're going to give you folks so many tools, so many tips, so many tactics, and we're just excited to be on the journey with you. So, Katie, thanks for being here on our first episode.
Thanks so much for having me, and looking forward to the next